Welcome to the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rose. And again, as always, a big shout out to all the free thinkers, the independent spirits out there, the Mavericks on the path, looking for their own unique perspective, thinking outside the box. Welcome and thank you for listening. Today we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Triné, and she's here in the same city as I am, Virginia Beach. And she is a master manifester, a Reiki master, a life coach, you name it. We're going to talk about manifesting in general, keeping your energy up, and living the life that you really choose. So come on board, Triné.
Hi there.
Welcome. I have been wanting to have this conversation with you for a long time.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of expertise in this area. So let me just introduce you for a second. Not only, as I mentioned, Triné is a professional life coach and a Reiki master for 30 years. I'm a Reiki master for 38, 37. So, we both understand that level of Reiki. Yeah. Triné actively teaches. She has a wonderful center here in Virginia Beach called the Reiki Wellness and Meditation Center. What I wanted to talk about today is not only the process, but also how to get yourself unstuck when you hit roadblocks.
Yes, it's a good one. That's a big one, actually, especially with what we've got going on nowadays. There's so many, what I like to call seemingly roadblocks, right? Yes. They are seemingly roadblocks. But if we remember, right, that the universe is so abundant, and really we don't manifest abundance. We actually manifest roadblocks.
Yeah. Great.
Right?
Point.
And
Great.
it's like when we flip that script in our head, when we do that, it kind of gives it a power shift, and all of a sudden you start to see things from an abundant perspective as opposed to a limited perspective, but that's a good one. Those roadblocks, or what seems like a roadblock, are, I like to say that the universe is intentional, and it's also obedient.
Yes.
Right?
It responds to our frequency. It responds to our beliefs, and it's a mental construct too.
It is. And it's like, I explain, so you need masculine energy and feminine energy to create, right? And so I like to explain, like, your thoughts are the masculine energy, like they send out a vibrational frequency, and your feelings, they're the magnet, and they're sending out, they're creating the aura essence that is the magnetic field that draws energy to us. Well, it takes two, right? And if your one is stronger than the other, for example, if we're saying to ourselves, I am open and receptive to my next right step, but we've got so much gripping fear because we don't see how that's going to show up. We're going to run into what we call roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I call them seemingly, because we don't have to be in that lack when we remember the universe is obedient to us and just following our lead. And I guess just like a good marriage, you've got to ask, be clear in your communication, and it's funny how it works out.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about understanding your core beliefs, your core foundational beliefs, and learning to energize and become clear about what you do believe on that basic level. And to be honest with yourself, because, you can affirm all day long.
Yep.
And if you're really internally not believing it, or you have programming from childhood, leftover traumas, whatever, and again, so this goes back to, what is the purpose of a positive statement? What is the purpose of an affirmation, or as you call them, declarations? Mm-hmm. I know that about you. which is great. What is the purpose of it? And I think part of it is to convince our conscious mind of the truth.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to throw this out there. I have this perspective, and tell me how you feel about it. So when we are affirming something, it's our reality. Like we're affirming something. And, okay, I'll talk about that in a second. So when we affirm something, it's in our reality. When we declare something, it's like we're saying that, hey, my invisible team, hey team, you know, I'm choosing this.
Yes.
And then there's one step further. There's an energy called a decree. And that's when, and all my parents out there are going to totally get this. Even if you're a pet owner, right? You get it when you're serious, when your head, your heart, and your solar plexus are totally lined up, and you know, and you decide something, it happens. And what I mean by that, your parents or whatever, is when your kids go, okay, it's time for bed. And they're like, Mom, no, you know, and they're, you know, dragging it out. But then when you go, let's go, it's time for bed, they can feel that alignment, and it's a decree. And the universe is the same way.
We just use different words. I use command voice, or that's how I describe it. Yeah. When you step into command voice.
Perfect. You know? And you use that command voice. Right. You create a decree. Yeah. And it's like a dominion, right? You're in that energy of abundance, as opposed to even being in the energy of control, which is always fear-based, right? So I love, you know, when we're talking about those core beliefs, like you say, like, what's my words are undercurrent, like what's the undercurrent belief I've got in there? And you can't lie to yourself. Rule number 1, you know, you can't lie. It doesn't work. So you can't talk it into existence, but you can. This is something people are always surprised to hear, but it works like magic, is because the universe understands vibrational frequency. If you take, let's say, you're looking for money, say somebody's looking to find a better job or increase their revenue or whatever. And they're sitting there and but they don't feel worthy of it, or they can't, or worse, like they can't see how it's going to happen. Remembering something that you felt abundant, when you felt like you were winning, when you felt that money coming in. So it could have been an old memory. You link with that, then use the command voice of bring me more of that. The universe goes, oh, okay, crystal clear. And before you know it, it starts coming in, you know, it starts showing up.
Because you're aligning with the frequency.
That's right. And before we even align, right, oftentimes we'll see it in when we're misaligned, when we're not aware of our core undercurrent, okay, or that core belief that your phrase. We know we want that, so we see that happening, but we see it outside of ourselves. Our best friend gets their dream job, or you know, we see somebody getting, you know, going to the next level in their career or in their space, maybe getting a new home or whatever. They're their next level, and we're going over here going, oh gosh, when's my turn? Like, hey, I'm following the rules. I'm following the rules. I'm affirming. I'm declaring. You know,
I did it 30 times. Where is it?
Right, where is it?
Yeah.
So you got 2 things working there. You've got one, it is showing up for you. It just isn't able to come in all the way. So it's showing up in your field and you're being able to see it. We call that bits and pieces. And then the second is you got attachment, right? And we know that, you know, Kathy, you know this, like when we're attached to the results of something, it can come.
Right. Attachment creates tightness. And one of the things I talk about is when you are working on manifesting, affirming, declaring, you know, you're putting out that energy. If you're tight, if you're forcing, if you're trying to make it happen, and if you are too specific, attached to it, looking a certain way, happening at a certain day, you know, all of that, it doesn't flow the same as when you're wide open, relaxed. And I usually say, try to do your affirmation and be generally specific and specifically general.
I love it.
Okay, yeah. I want to have that as a bumper sticker.
That's a great bumper, right?
And specifically general.
Yeah. And, and so remember, I tell people this, that, you are manifesting the energy, not the specific. So if you're wanting love, but you say it has to be this person, you've just closed the channel.
Right.
Right. And so, so it's like, so there's a difference also between what we want, which comes from our head and our ego and our conscious mind, which I am a big believer in. I love the ego, a positive ego, right? And then, but sometimes it's an overdeveloped muscle, like, one of the big bodybuilders. But then there's what you desire, and your desire comes from your soul, from the inside, like that soul truth. I desire freedom. I desire love. I desire respect. Like, I truly desire that next level. Now, when we're affirming, like you said, affirm with an open heart or open energy. Next thing you know, the universe starts to bring you variations of that. You turn away what doesn't work for you, like someone, you want a new car, you're wanting to stay in your freedom. But you need a new car. So it brings you something and you're like, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. So it'll bring you something else. That's not exactly what I'm looking for. And eventually though, it'll come clear, so just like that, when we were restricted, the energy can't move. Therefore, you can't manifest. So if I tell my clients, think of it like that, right? Think of it like that. If you're restricted, the energy can't move, and therefore you can't manifest. So
I tell the story of the process I went through when I decided I was going to manifest my husband.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. I had been in I started a relationship when I was 18 years old, and I dated for 11 years, the same man. And it was a big learning experience. Let me just say that. It was a big learning experience, and it wasn't a great relationship, but I learned a lot. So when it was time to end that relationship, and I decided, you know what, I'm ready for a soulmate type relationship. I'm ready for my marriage partner. I had to first look at the fact, I had to look at what I had manifested in that prior relationship and ask myself, if I don't change my beliefs about myself, I'm going to attract the same kind of person, somebody who cheated, who lied, and who was kind of emotionally abusive. So, and it was a taker, not a giver. And I had to realize in that moment, the first step, that if I didn't learn how to receive or learn I was worthy of receiving, I'm not going to attract a giver.
That's right.
So I spent 3 months hardcore going after it like a dog after a bone. I got into my inner pit bull.
Yeah,
said, I am going to change that belief, and I'm going to convince myself I'm worthy of receiving and that I'm worthy of love. So I did that first. And this is the thing I think so many people need to understand, is you have to change the inner image first, and then you attract. This is what you've said. It's just, I'm saying it in a different way.
Absolutely.
But I started the affirmations. And what was interesting is I was generally specific, specifically general. I was basically saying I'm now attracting my perfect soulmate marriage partner. And a few things that I thought were important. He is looking for me, just like I'm looking for him. He is ready to go. We will recognize each other when we see each other. And he is a giver and, successful in all departments of life. And the thing that I needed to put into that affirmation is that he would pursue me, because I'm a pretty assertive person. And I know I can make things happen. I know I can, push into things to make them happen. So I said, he will pursue me. And I only did that for a few months. And, I manifested it right away, and we were engaged within 4 weeks. And now we've been married 34 years.
Isn't that the best? So I think I love your story because it speaks on the, when people are talking out there, there is misinformation, direction, whatever, on how to manifest. And so you hear about be specific and be clear. Be specific like you were on the energy of what you wanted, right? You didn't create this list that talked about blue eyes and 6'4", right? You didn't go into that. You let the universe bring to you your perfect match. And so, so people speak on being clear and detailed, and you were clear and detailed in the energy of what you were attracting. And that is why you married 34 years, 36 years.
Yeah. It was an amazing, what we would call miraculous manifestation, but it's really not a miracle, because miracles are just understanding how to use divine law. Manifesting after you do that process is normal. It's the normal divine law.
It's our natural state. That's right.
But we like to call it a miracle. Although, when people call it miraculous, it makes it sound that it's so magical, it's only going to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And that you're so special, you have the miracle. And I like to say, no, this is normal. It should happen every day. It's aligning with the highest good and letting it flow through you. But it's also focusing your energy. One of the things I like to talk about is just the self-fulfilling prophecy, which says, be mindful what you tell yourself about a situation, because you get to be right. You get to be right. So what are you telling yourself? So when I'm working with clients, what are you telling yourself about this situation?
Yes.
Well, I'm telling myself I'm cursed. I'm telling myself I'm unlucky. How's that working out for you? Well, that's how I feel. Well, is that how you want to feel? No, I don't want to feel that way. Then why are you telling yourself that?
Equally so when people send those mixed messages like, I'm ready for love, but God, the men out there are terrible.
Yes. Or they're all taken, or they're really hard to find.
All of those statements, the universe has to respond to all of those. And if one of those statements vibrates to your core belief, that's what's coming in.
Yeah. And we all have bad days, and we all have days when we're going to say things we don't necessarily believe, or days when we say things we don't want. But if it's not a repetitive thing, if it's just a moment where you're getting it out of your system, it's not like you have to be afraid and press delete. You just say, I was spewing. I canceled that out. And then you focus on what you want. There's this notion out there, have you heard of the term toxic positivity?
Yes.
I got accused of that recently on Facebook.
Oh, you did?
I did. I put a post on Facebook that said, if you have 2,000 or 3,000 friends, and every time you post on Facebook, you post something negative, a complaint, or a trauma, or how horrible your life is, or how disappointed you are, or how nothing works out. If that's what you post all the time, those 2,000 or 3,000 friends who read your Facebook post are going to see you in that way, and they're going to energize that.
Yeah, you got an amplifier.
You got an amplifier. And I said, so is that how you want to be seen? Do you want all those people imprinting that energy about you out in the universe? Maybe if you posted something positive or hopeful, and it's not that you have to fake it, but you can post, if something traumatic happens, you can post it and say, this is what I'm learning from it. And occasionally we do want to post things on Facebook so our friends support us and love us, but not every day, all the time. But the comments that came in the emails,
really?
Toxic positivity, don't tell me what to put. And that's not what I meant. Now, I understand what they mean, I think, by toxic positivity, and that's the people who refuse to acknowledge when they are upset or their own feelings. But I think that phrase, toxic positivity, it's an oxymoron.
It is, isn't it?
I mean,
that surprises me about, what you received, because
the reaction,
response. Yeah. But, even that is, when we observe our personal, so when we were talking about manifesting, and we observe our responses to things, if we are going to respond in a way that is so aggressive on anything, we want to do some personal work. We want to take a look at ourselves and go,
yeah.
Wait a second, there's a reason why it's called trigger.
Yes.
I've moved out of that word because that word, gives me triggers. Years, 30 years in the industry, right? Now everybody's using it for everything. So it activates something in ourselves, right? And it activates us. And so, if my son says something that, invokes that kind of response where I'm going to want to bark back, or bark, and he didn't bark. He just said something. I'm like, where'd that come from? Okay. I need to notice.
You might want to look at that.
I need to look at myself and go, what part of that, what's going on there? And usually there's a belief or an energetic tie to a family core belief that you've moved away from, but it's still active.
And I'm really not criticizing those who said that's toxic positivity.
Oh, no.
I thought it was fascinating and interesting, but it was not my intention to say you can or cannot post this on Facebook and you have to be positive all the time. I mean, so let me share the story I'm going through now, which is why I wanted to do this topic. Mm-hmm. So we had a big, beautiful house and we sold it in the summer while the prices were high because we're downsizing, right? Kids are gone. So we're downsizing. And so now we're renting for a year. And by the way, I manifested a fabulous house to rent. And that was amazing how it came about. But we're choosing to buy in the next 5 or 6 months at a much lower price than our prior house. So, I'm affirming there is a right and perfect house and the right timing, the right location. Our path is blessed. Grace flows through this, all the stuff that I do. And I usually have great results. But I'm making the mistake to look at houses too soon because I know the timing of when this is really going to occur. And everything we've looked at so far has just been a flat out horrible, not a good match at all.
Not your vibe.
And it just like bang against the wall. And it's like, ooh, isn't that a wonderful learning opportunity for me to remember this works every single time? Just because it's a little challenge doesn't mean it's not going to work. How do you deal with the discouragement? For example, I have a few clients who are trying to manifest a promotion or a shift in their job. Okay. So they're applying and applying and applying again and again and again and being told no, 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 no. Now they continue to be positive. They continue to affirm, but they're getting no, 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 no. And supporting themselves through that, looking at the whole picture, that is an important skill to learn how to do that.
It is. And if I may speak on that, that's how, that's a common thing. The first thing I'm going to invite them to anybody who is finding themselves following the rules, doing it right, checking the boxes. If you're noticing that you're doing that and it's still not showing up, it's so important to take an intentional pause, just like you and I talked a little earlier. Take that intentional pause and go, you know what? I'm going to turn inward and I'm going to work on elevating my vibrational frequency to receive that next level of income, receive that next level of responsibility, right? And so when we continue to fill the cup, but it's already full, we know what happens. And it's the same thing energetically. And it actually can create this resistance because I don't know about you, but when I was doing that before I had gotten to the place I'm at now, when I was there, there was like, I started to build tiny pieces of resentment, I doubted myself. I doubted the universe. I doubted that it was so abundant. And so therefore I started creating obstacles or resistance, right, in this abundant world. So when we remember that abundance is the universe's natural state, right? The natural state of the universe is abundant. And what we do is we manifest roadblocks or obstacles. There is such thing as divine timing. There is such thing as alignment. It's part of being human. That's the practice, right? We've chosen to be here on planet Earth and practice being human. So we do have the time element that we are working with. Side note on something else with time and that whole big thing everybody's talking about, there's no time. No, there's no time, but there is time on planet Earth. We get to work here. It's safe. Okay. So taking that moment and taking an intentional pause and it's so funny. Most important, you can't fight for it. You have to allow it to come to you. So to what I would say to those people, you've done your due diligence. The universe knows what you want. It is rearranging things to make manifest your desires. And just like you said a couple of minutes ago, sit back, take a pause and be. Take a pause and be. Be the energy of receptivity. Just like you did when you manifested your husband. You put it out there and then you just were present and you allowed it to come. You allowed him to come. You allowed the energy to come. You even just said with my house, like I could look all I want. I'm not even if they weren't dumps or didn't match your energy, they're not going to be your vibe. So stop looking. You'll know when it's time.
There's another fine point to this too, that I like to teach. And that is, and I felt it so strongly when I was affirming for my husband, that you reach a point, if you're affirming it over and over and over. I had my little routine and I would sing it. I would say it out loud. I would put it out there with passion and power. But there reached a point where I went, today, I don't need to do it.
That's right.
I believe it. I feel it. It's in my vibe. I don't need to do it anymore. And I honored that when I hit that signal, because that means you have convinced yourself, or you have reached the place where you are in alignment with this to manifest. You don't have to keep doing that affirmation cycle at that point, but it's important to pay attention to that. And that was 1 week before I met him. At that point, I went, let it go, turn it over. It's fine. It is so.
Right. I love that, because if you didn't, what happens is it starts to create
pressure.
Yes. It closes the
pressure
energy down. So you go from expectancy, which we talk about at the Reiki Center. Like we go from expectancy, open-hearted, open-minded, opened arms, like, come on, to expectation. The energy starts to close off. You're no longer paying attention to the divine whisper, things like that. Universal law, is neutral. So it just follows the vibe. So one of the things I say is celebrate. Celebrate what looks like a loss. Celebrate what looks like a job interview that you didn't get the job. That wasn't celebrated. It wasn't my job. Woo. Closer now, and sing, dance, play, have fun with it. And, that can be so hard. I say that, and I can remember way back when, it was hard to sing and dance and play when my heart was set on X, Y, or Z.
When you've been told no 5 times in a row and you're disappointed. I mean, that's real. That's real.
Take the pause. Take the pause.
Be disappointed. Get it out of your system and carry on.
Be present in what your moment is, and don't declare. No, it's in action. It's in process.
That important step of surrendering, turning it over, letting it go. Some people are more wired to that than others. As an astrologer, I usually say it's the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, who usually have the hardest time actually letting it go. The fixed signs are the ones who yearn for control. And I have a lot of fixed energy. And I know that I had to actively teach myself, let this go, release it, turn it over.
I want to point out something you said, I think was so important, and to almost capsulize it is you shared, you got clear on cleaning yourself up. Then you created your declarations. Then you said them until you knew to stop. Like you said them until you were aligned. And it was like, this is my reality. Boom. Okay, it's coming. Then he came in. So yes, you were committed to saying them, but you were in such dominion. You were in your power voice. You were in that place of, you were clear. This is what I desired, and this is my reality.
I believed it.
I'm okay whatever time it comes.
And I think it's also important to remind people that when you first start an affirmation program, trying to retrain your beliefs or convince yourself of something new or heal from within, it is normal in the beginning that your inner self's going to go, no. And you just keep it up. You do the inner work, you change your habits, you change your patterns, and it does shift. But it does take time, and it takes commitment, and it takes, sometimes it doesn't take that long. I mean, it can happen instantly. But if you're working on some core old stuff, programming from childhood, trauma or wounds that you may have sustained along the way, and you're choosing to go into a process of creating something new, it does take work.
You're going to get kickback. You're going to get that resistance, because resistance is part of creation.
Yes.
Chaos is part of creation. That's the birth of creation, right? So anytime we are looking to create something new, there's chaos somewhere, in our head, in our heart, in the world, whatever, there's
But you take charge. A lot of people think it's sort of just a magic bullet. You say it, it happens. That's it. Okay. La, la, la. I said my 10 affirmations today. At certainly the beginning. And, I really prefer, instead of calling it manifesting, to call it creating. Because manifesting sounds magical. Manifesting sounds like it's magic when it's not magic. It's truth.
We've shifted, asking ourselves, are we in fluid energy, or are we in constricted energy? What are we doing? Because you'll notice that, like, if you're in the car, it doesn't matter where you are, but you can ask yourself, is my energy open and flowing, or am I closed and restricted? There's no wrong answer. It's just awareness. And from awareness, you can choose to stay in that or not. I'm a brand new grandma. And it's so funny, because I am blown away at, I love my kids. My kids are fantastic, but I'm not a baby person. Like, I'm not that person that's, puppies, babies, kittens. I love them. They're great. They're yours. That's cool.
Yeah.
So when people said it's going to change your world, I was like, yeah. We'll see about that.
They were right, weren't they?
They were. And what she's like that nugget that, if I'm having closed energy, if I notice I'm in closed energy for whatever reason, I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or, my subconscious kind of got away from me, whatever. And I'm like, what? I am in restrictive energy. Interesting. Think of that little, she looks like a little
unconditional sunbeam.
Yeah. And she just, next thing my heart's open. It's like, I laugh out loud, and you're like, that's crazy. Does that make sense?
So it makes total sense.
So for people who aren't sure how to manifest, open your heart, and it doesn't have to be on that same subject. It can be your puppy's face. I know you love your puppy, it can be anything that makes you, it could be a joke. It could be a funny reel you saw, like, oh my God, open your heart, and then say your declarations. Then remind yourself that one of the things that we say is, I am safe, I am worthy, and I make wise choices. That's a declaration trio that we use. That's a foundation 100 times a day. I am safe, I am worthy, make wise choices. For anybody who's new to this work, and being in that energy, but with an open heart. So remembering someone or something that opens your heart, because it's just energy. Link your desire with an intentional memory, right? Or something that you can remember a feeling of joy. And that's all you have to do is remember a feeling of joy and then declare whatever. So you can be thinking about your grandbaby and declare, a new house, new job, right? You can be over here in that joy state.
Yes.
And then you'll start to see it. It will. And Kathy, it'll start to show up in bits and pieces in that you'll see it around you. All of a sudden, every book you read has whatever you're manifesting in it, or, the people around you, or even on TV or songs, all of that starts to show up, and it's celebrate that. Get excited about that, because it does two things. One, it opens your heart, moves you out of closed energy, keeps you in open energy, and the universe responds quickly to that higher frequency.
One of my good friends, spiritually speaking, his name is Pete Sanders Jr., he came up with a good phrase, and it is, he says, make it a quest, not a test. Yeah. Because if you're in test mode, it's pass, fail, and it's pressured. Yep. If you're in quest mode, it's an adventure. That's right. And going along with that thought, especially around the thought of creating the reality you want, it is not, I failed because I don't have it, but she didn't fail because she does, she succeeded and I failed. It is, it's not meant to punish us.
No.
To ask yourselves, because I did it for 6 months and I still don't have the job I want, I'm a spiritual failure. All that does is it spirals you down to lack and limitation and beating yourself up, and takes you out of the vibe.
The cycle goes and it goes and it goes. Like, so, if I'm manifesting something and it's not showing up, I get curious and I go, what's going on? What's happening? Yeah.
As opposed to beating yourself up or thinking you're a failure, you ask why and you look at it. Right. And it's often still some deep core belief coming forward that we just didn't realize we had.
Always.
The people who, if I ask, do you believe you're supported? Oh, no, it's always on me. I always have to do it. There's no help for me. It's like, maybe that's one of the core beliefs you want to start with, is that you are supported.
And what if you shifted your belief to realizing, you have that invisible team. So call on them. Let them do let them.
Well, and then the other step is, do you support yourself when something difficult happens, or do you abandon yourself? A lot of people who say, I feel abandoned, I felt abandoned by my parents. And I'll say, well, when you're in pain, do you support yourself? Are you your own best friend? Are you loving yourself and being there for you? No. Then you're abandoning yourself. Why don't you start with that?
Right. Because, when we've been abandoned as a child, that's the familiar. So what we do is we quit. We model it. Codependent behavior oftentimes, right? Where people will, do for others and not for themselves. So taking even just a small step and, setting that healing boundary for yourself, where you are allowing yourself to be, I'm going to nurture you. I've got you. We're going to do this together.
And you can teach yourself to do that, even if it was never modeled to you, because, the role of parents is to model behavior, and children observe everything their parents model to them. And then they can either, when they become older, they can either go on autopilot and do the same behavior as their parents, or they can say, wait a minute, I don't think I want this. I can create the new behavior myself. And often that is, I tell people, if they don't know what it looks like to have love and support in life, maybe watch a movie where you see it.
Yes.
You can get the hook into what
Yes.
you said earlier, the brain, capacity. Watch a movie or read a book where that theme is there, and then absorb it, become part of it.
And get excited that it's in your field, because one of the things I explain is what you desire desires you back. So everything that you are deeply desiring, that energy of love or freedom or stability, it's looking for you as well.
Yes.
Right. So it's looking for you as well, just like your manifestation with your spouse. And so, it's looking for you, you're looking for it. And so we speak it, we're clear about it. But the part that people forget, and it is so important, especially going into the energy, the planetary changes that we've got going on, just like overall right now, back in 2012, when we went from Gaia to Pi and all of that, is we have to receive. We are in a be still and receive energy. And that's only going to get the divine feminine energy of receptivity. That's what I mean by that, is becoming more and more important to understand. So speak it. Yes. Clearly speak it from your power voice, and then allow it to come. That is what you did.
Yeah. You open and receive, because otherwise, again, it's constricting the channel and cutting it off. And it's so easy to notice, am I tight? Like you said, fluid or controlled, in the flow or not. One of the things that I like to focus on quite a bit is when you were really confused and in doubt about what you want to declare, or you're attached to an outcome. My favorite affirmation at that point is just to state in command voice, divine right action is now taking place in this situation for the highest good of all concerned. Period. End of story. Divine right action or divine justice. Let's say you're going to court for something. Maybe somebody's going through a divorce and they're having a nasty divorce situation that's very difficult, and it looks to them like it's not going to be fair, and it's triggering their own kind of feeling of abandonment of fairness. So at that point, maybe they can just affirm divine justice prevails here. There is divine justice now in this situation for the highest good of all concerned, and let it go, but declare it as a command. You're not asking for it. You are commanding divine justice prevails. Now, I can say sometimes divine right action and divine justice is not what my ego wants.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I know.
If you want me to go
you
there.
look like the cat that ate the canary. It's like, oh,
I was like,
yeah. But I mean, and I've experienced that on more than one occasion. But, if I'm at a choice point, and I feel a particular kind of wiggle in the energy, that's where I go. I go to that affirmation because in the end, what do I really want? I want right action.
Right.
I want divine right action for my highest good. Divine right action, maybe you don't get the job. Divine right action, maybe you don't get the particular house you've bid on. You want divine right action. And if that is what you are putting out, that is what you're going to get. It just may not be what your ego wants
in that moment, because let's go back to the court case. So the first this time might seemingly not go in your favor, only to allow, there's so much to learn in that experience, right? Then you get stronger in your personal trust. You get stronger in your trust with your team. You get clearer on the energy of what you are moving fluid, you're moving with, you're dancing with, you're playing with. And then what happens is you declare again, you decree again, you command again, you do those things again, and it works out in your favor. Or the even better house comes on the market for you, right? So, I think it's important to remember that everything's temporary.
It's attachment that gets in the way.
Always.
It's the need for control.
Always. Yeah.
And see, this is what I butt up against all the time as an astrologer, seeing clients every day, frequently 7 days a week. You get people who sometimes think what they want is the prediction. They want to know, how are things going to work out? Tell me when this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Tell me when the relationship is going to come in. Come on, you're an astrologer. You can see it. Or does my chart say I'm going to be happy next year? My answer to that is always going to be yes.
Amen.
Your chart says you're going to be happy whenever you choose to be happy. It does. It does. Yes, it does. And whenever you decide you're going to be happy, your chart says that. Really? Where? All over. But we create that. The chart does not create that. We create as we go. But this attachment to, please tell me it's going to be okay. So it will. Even including what's the bad stuff? I know there's bad stuff in my chart. Please tell me. It's like, there's no bad stuff in your chart. Oh, there has to be. I mean, other astrologers have told me bad things. I come up against this all the time, in that you get to create through the timing in your chart, perhaps, but it's not dictated for you.
I'm glad you expand on that, because one of the things that I use when people, like, we do moon meditations and things like that, so, but I'm always clear to say, astrology is not my thing, right? I don't do astrology. I do divine law. I do universal law, but I don't know astrology. And I give them your number. But how, one of the things that I received was, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is astrology is the roadmap for when we are on autopilot, and we can move into divine law at any time. So astrology is what our soul created as a roadmap for when we're just kind of on autopilot in the human law. But at any time, we can elevate our consciousness into divine law, and then from there, make manifest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is called the Maverick Podcast, and I have a Maverick view about that. I haven't brought up the word Maverick this whole time, which is odd for me. My Maverick view on astrology is that the imprint we receive at birth from the planetary patterns is just an imprint. Mm-hmm. And the imprint is suggesting, as I look at the horoscope, it's suggesting, what are the life purpose issues? Where are you here to grow and evolve? And it isolates certain areas for what you are working on in this lifetime for healing and growth and development. But you can grow beyond that imprint. You can absolutely grow beyond it. It is not a prison sentence. You are not locked in. In fact, people who say, my chart, my chart, my chart, or, my moon in the 8th house means this, I say, I have a chart, but I am not a chart. I am a soul, and I have a chart. Mm-hmm. If I've lived many lifetimes, then I have many charts, but I don't identify with my chart. That is the lingo that happens in astrology all the time. I am this, I am that, and they become the chart, including the limitations that they've been told about it. So in your Reiki center and meditation center, I know your website is rwmcva.com, Reiki Wellness Meditation Center, VA for Virginia. So rwmcva.com. And I know that you speak outside of Virginia, and you take, I'm sure, life coach clients outside of Virginia.
All over the world.
Yeah.
I have clients almost on just about every continent, that work with. So yeah.
Well, I have to say thank you so much for your wisdom and what you are giving the world, because, the more people you open with Reiki or with teaching them how to create their own reality, the better the world becomes.
Yeah.
I mean, it always begins and ends with our own consciousness. If we are resonating with lovingness, if we are resonating with inner peace and flow, and we're open to the universal support and love that's out there, the world automatically becomes a better place. You don't have to go out and protest or
Right.
or, be a revolutionary. You're creating revolution by being in that frequency.
And so, exactly. And that's what I was saying, in that receptive, that's the divine feminine energy that has been really amplifying since December 21st, 2012. It's a huge shift in our consciousness, and it's going to take some time, but to really practice being receptive while being clear on what
acceleration is happening.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll say bye for now.
Yes.
And we'll have you back on again at some point.
Sure. Bye.
Bye-bye.